London, 1850. The air is thick with coal smoke, the streets echo with the clatter of carriage wheels, and every step, every glance, every word is bound by rules stricter than iron. This is a world where fashion demands suffering, where a smile can spark scandal, and where love itself must hide behind layers of propriety. Into this world awakens Jane Wilson, a young woman born to respectability yet longing for something more. Each day begins with corsets and curtsies, measured conversations and carefully timed visits. But beneath the polished surface, hearts beat restlessly, yearning for freedom. When Jane encounters Thomas Fairchild, a gentleman of reputation, intellect, and quiet defiance, she is drawn into the most dangerous game of all, Victorian courtship. Their story will not be told in embraces or stolen kisses, but in glances across candlelit rooms, in poetry hidden in drawers, and in whispers carried through gaslit streets. This is not merely a romance, it is survival, reputation, and the battle between duty and desire. The first thing you notice is the weight, not of blankets but of the air itself, cold, damp, and thick with coal smoke. It presses against your lungs the moment you draw a breath, reminding you that this is not your century, not your familiar world of central heating and filtered air. You have woken in London sometime around 1850, and the city outside your window is alive in a way both thrilling and suffocating. You lie on a narrow iron bed, the mattress stuffed not with feathers or foam but with horsehair. It is prickly, uneven, yet strangely firm beneath you. Your sheets are cotton, serviceable, not luxurious. A faint smell of soap lingers from the laundry, but it cannot mask the ever-present odor of soot drifting in from the street. Even here, in the privacy of a bedroom, London reminds you of its smoke. The fireplace across from you is nearly dead. Only embers glow, casting jagged shadows against the bulky wardrobe and the washstand with its white ceramic basin. On the dressing table sits a small mirror, its surface slightly clouded. Beside it rests a cut-glass perfume bottle, bergamot oil sharp and citrusy, the fashionable scent of the season. Every detail speaks of another era, another life. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, followed by the rattling clatter of carriage wheels striking uneven cobblestones. The city is stirring and so too must you. On the table by your bed is a small silver bell. You lift it, the metal cold against your fingers, and give it a gentle ring. The sound is clear, high, and deliberate. Within moments, soft footsteps rise on the staircase. The door opens and there stands Mary, your maid, already fully dressed though the sun has barely begun to light the fog outside. "Good morning, miss," she says with a neat curtsy. Her voice is soft but steady. "Shall I draw the curtains?" You nod, though it hardly matters. Mary crosses to the window, pulling back the heavy velvet drapes. A thin gray daylight seeps through, the glass smeared with soot. Beyond lies the silhouette of chimneys pumping smoke into an already clouded sky. "What would you like to wear today, miss?" Mary asks, opening the wardrobe. Inside hangs a forest of gowns, layers of silk, wool, and cotton, each one a statement more than an outfit. Fashion here is not comfort. It is armor, an announcement to the world of who you are and who you are not. Before you can answer, Mary reminds you, you have a morning call with Mrs. Hartley at 11. And tea with your cousin Emily at 4. The words stir something in you. A morning call. The phrase sounds quaint, harmless, almost cheerful. Yet in this society it is anything but casual. The morning call is one of the countless rituals that define Victorian life. A meeting that lasts exactly 15 minutes, no more, no less. A visit where every gesture, every phrase, every exit is carefully choreographed. Here every move matters. Mary selects a day dress in deep blue wool, laying it neatly on the bed. She begins with the shift, the simple cotton underlayer. Next comes the corset. You inhale sharply as she pulls the laces, your ribs compressing, your lungs shrinking. Breath becomes shallow, forced. This is not clothing, it is discipline, physical and visible. By the time she has added petticoats, crinoline, and finally the gown, you are carrying nearly 15 pounds of fabric. She pins your hair into a severe bun at the nape of your neck. Not a strand is permitted to stray. Order, control, restraint, these are not just values, they are expectations. Finally, Mary holds up two choices, gloves or mittens. You answer immediately, gloves. A proper lady never shows bare hands in public. It is considered almost scandalous, as if modesty itself begins at the wrist. When you are finished, you glance at your reflection. The girl in the mirror is both you and not you. Pale, composed, a figure encased in propriety. The corset leaves you breathless. The gown leaves you towering. The gloves leave you hidden. Downstairs the house is waking. Servants scurry with brushes and brooms. The smell of bacon, porridge, and coffee wafts from the kitchen. In the dining room, your father sits at the head of the table, newspapers spread like a shield before him. Your mother, already immersed in correspondence, barely looks up. "Good morning," you say politely, lowering yourself into a chair. Your father nods once, eyes still on the page. Affection is not displayed here, not even within families. Hugging, touching, even warmth of tone, these are considered indulgences, unnecessary and even improper. Breakfast is not a moment of closeness. It is another performance in the theater of daily life. Your mother speaks without raising her head. "Remember, Jane, when we see Mrs. Hartley, congratulate her daughter on the engagement. But do not ask questions. Curiosity is vulgar." "Yes, mother," you reply, tucking the rule into your growing mental ledger. Outside, carriage wheels clatter again. London is alive, moving, watching. Every sound reminds you that you are not simply living, you are being observed, measured, judged. And so the day begins. The first of many, governed by rules invisible but inescapable. You sip your tea, hands perfectly steady inside their gloves, and wonder how many more rules you will learn before the sun sets. Because here, in this world of smoke and lace, life is played on expert mode. By the time you leave the breakfast table, the household is fully alive. Somewhere in the distance, the heavy clang of coal being shoveled into the kitchen range echoes through the walls. Upstairs, Mary waits, ready to begin the most exhausting ritual of any Victorian day, dressing. You may imagine that putting on clothes is a simple act. But here in 1850 London, it is closer to going into battle. Armor, weapons, and encumbrances all included. Fashion is suffering, and yet fashion must be obeyed. Mary begins with what is unseen. First, the chemise, a long cotton shift that brushes against your ankles. It is plain, nearly shapeless, but essential, your only barrier between skin and the scratchy fabrics that follow. Over this comes the corset cover, thin muslin meant to soften the ridges of the stays that will soon encase your torso. Then comes the moment you both dread and anticipate, the corset itself. Mary positions the stiff garment around your waist, tugging the laces behind you with practiced strength. "Breathe out, miss," she murmurs. You obey, and immediately the air leaves your lungs only to be denied re-entry. The corset squeezes, compresses, reshapes. Your waist narrows with every pull, ribs shifting, lungs protesting. "Tighter, Mary," you instruct, remembering that a proper young lady's waist should be small enough for a man to encircle with his hands. Mary pulls harder, her face set with determination. At last she ties the laces, leaving you upright, immobilized and breathless. The corset is followed by layers of petticoats. First one, then two, then three. Each adds bulk and weight, a barrier between you and the world. Already your body is vanishing beneath fabric, your silhouette expanding outward even as your waist shrinks inward. Next comes the crinoline, a cage of whalebone and steel hoops that clicks into place around you. Its purpose is simple, to hold your skirt away from your legs, creating the fashionable bell shape that can knock over small dogs or toddlers with one careless turn. The gown itself follows. Today Mary has chosen a deep blue wool day dress, practical yet elegant. She fastens the bodice tightly, smoothing the fabric so it molds perfectly to the unnatural lines of your corseted torso. The skirt cascades over the crinoline, a river of blue that transforms you into a walking lampshade of propriety. By now you are wearing nearly 15 pounds of clothing. Each step will be deliberate, each breath shallow, each gesture constrained. Fashion is not expression here, it is discipline. But the ritual is not over. Mary pulls your hair back from your face, combing it into a smooth, severe bun at the nape of your neck. Every strand is pinned, no flyaways permitted. She adds a touch of pomade to keep the gloss intact. Hair, like hands and ankles, must be tamed, contained, invisible. Finally, the question of accessories arises. Mary presents two options, mittens or gloves. The choice is ceremonial, though the answer is predetermined. Gloves, you say firmly. A proper lady never, under any circumstance, reveals bare hands in public. Hands are mysterious, private, and oddly scandalous in this society. White kid leather gloves slide onto your fingers, soft yet restrictive. They are symbols as much as garments. With them, you signal purity, modesty, and adherence to codes no one dares speak aloud. Mary stands back, surveying her work. "Lovely, miss," she says softly, though her tone carries both pride and pity. You turn to the mirror. The reflection is both familiar and alien. Your waist is impossibly small, your skirt vast, your hair severe, your hands hidden. The girl who blinks back at you is a soldier dressed not for war but for social survival. Every pleat and pin is a weapon, every restriction a shield. There is a peculiar comfort in it too. In a world so ruled by judgment and whispers, the uniform of respectability provides safety. The corset suffocates, but it also protects. The crinoline confines, but it also defines. Mary steps forward again, handing you a delicate lace handkerchief. "A touch of bergamot, miss?" she asks. You nod. She dabs the citrusy oil onto the cloth, just enough to smell clean, not enough to suggest seduction. Perfume is frowned upon. Queen Victoria herself declared heavy scents vulgar. The faintest hint is permissible, more would mark you as improper. When the ritual is finally complete, you feel less like yourself and more like an artifact. A porcelain doll meant to be displayed, admired, and judged, but never allowed to breathe freely. As you move toward the door, the weight of your gown sways with each step. Your skirts brush the furniture, your gloves whisper against the wood of the banister. The performance has already begun, though you haven't yet stepped outside. "Shall I fetch your bonnet, miss?" Mary asked. "Yes," you reply, steadying yourself. Outside waits the endless theater of Victorian life. Every rule, every glance, every misstep could decide your future. The wardrobe is armor. The corset is discipline. The gloves are modesty. And you are the actor about to step on stage. By the time you descend the staircase, you are no longer Jane Wilson, the young woman. You are Miss Wilson, the daughter of a respectable London family, encased in fabric and restraint. The weight of your gown drags against the banister. Your gloves glide across the polished wood. Every movement is rehearsed, deliberate. Even walking down to breakfast is a performance. The dining room door stands open, revealing a long mahogany table polished to a dark gleam. Sunlight, such as it is in foggy London, filters weakly through tall windows, landing on silver platters that shine like soldiers lined in rank. The room smells of bacon and coffee, mingled inevitably with the faint tang of coal smoke seeping through every crack. At the head of the table sits your father, Mr. Wilson. His newspaper is spread wide, a fortress of ink shielding him from the world. At the opposite end, your mother already bends over her correspondence, quills scratching briskly across heavy cream paper. Their places are fixed, unchanging like roles in a play. You enter quietly, curtsying just enough to acknowledge propriety. "Good morning," you say, your tone soft and precise, pitched between warmth and restraint. Your father lowers the paper just enough to glance at you. A nod, nothing more. No smile, no word. He returns to the columns of print without comment. In another time, another world, a father might embrace his daughter, ask about her sleep, tease her about her dreams. Here, affection is neither offered nor expected. At the far end, your mother continues writing. "Good morning, Jane," she says without lifting her gaze. "Do sit down." You obey, lowering yourself into a high-backed chair midway down the table. The corset resists. Your waist cannot bend easily, so you perch upright, rigid as a figurine. A footman appears silently, as if conjured, and sets before you a plate. Eggs, bacon, kidneys, toast, porridge. Substantial, hearty, the kind of breakfast designed to fortify someone against the coal smoke and damp of London streets. Yet the irony is sharp. With your corset squeezing your ribs and stomach, each bite must be small, each chew measured. You cannot devour this feast, you can barely taste it. Fashion allows no room for appetite. The silence is broken only by the rustle of your father's newspaper and the occasional clink of silver against china. At last, your mother speaks again, her words not personal but instructive. "Remember, Jane, Mrs. Hartley's daughter is recently engaged. When we call upon them, you must congratulate her." "Yes, mother. But do not ask about the wedding. That would be presumptuous." You nod. "The rule is clear. Acknowledge but do not pry." Show recognition but not curiosity. Interest is vulgar. Curiosity is dangerous. Even joy must be rationed, carefully portioned like sugar and tea. The conversation turns to weather as it so often does. A fine drizzle yesterday, your mother remarks, her pen still scratching. But I believe the fog will hold today. Mrs. Fairfax said the lamplighters were working late into the night. Your father grunts behind his newspaper, which in his language is equivalent to agreement. You sip your tea, its warmth steadying your hands, though your gloves keep the china from ever truly touching your skin. Somewhere deep inside, you long for a simple moment of laughter, of shared warmth over breakfast. But such things do not belong here. Family is not a place for tenderness, it is a stage for discipline. James, your elder brother, enters late, his boots clicking against the floorboards. Unlike you, he does not wear 15 pounds of restraint. His morning coat is fashionable, yes, but unencumbered. He greets your father with a firm handshake, your mother with a brisk kiss to the air near her cheek. For him, rules bend. For you, they bind. Club last night, James announces, sitting down with a thud. Fascinating debate about the corn laws. Your father lowers the paper slightly. And your opinion? They're finished, James says confidently, helping himself to bacon with the liberty of a man whose corset is imaginary. But I rather think Fairchild has the right of it. Banking will decide more than Parliament. The name sparks something in you. Thomas Fairchild. His family's name has already slipped into breakfast conversation, as inevitable as smoke in the air. You keep your gaze on your porridge, pretending indifference, but your ears sharpen. Solid family, the Fairchilds, your father murmurs, folding the newspaper at last. Old money. Dependable reputation. Their son returned from Oxford, I hear. Yes, James says casually, though his eyes flick toward you. Spoke of him at the club. Intelligent fellow. Your mother sets down her pen. Jane will have the opportunity to see him soon. The Fairchilds have invited us to dine. The words land like stones in your chest. You force your face into neutrality, lips calm, eyes lowered. Inside, your heart stirs faster than you dare allow. Dinner with the Fairchilds, your father repeats, as if the phrase carries weight enough to silence all else. He leans back, satisfied. A promising connection. The footman removes your plate, though you have barely eaten. Hunger is irrelevant. Appearance is everything. Breakfast concludes as it began. Not with affection, not with warmth, but with ritual. Chairs scrape back in unison, napkins are folded neatly, the performance of civility ends until the next scene begins. Your father departs for his study, James for his club, your mother for her correspondence. And you, corseted, gloved, and breathless, rise to return upstairs. The day stretches ahead, filled with rules you know and rules you've yet to learn. But in the back of your mind, a single thought burns brighter than the coal fire on the hearth. Thomas Fairchild. Dinner is only days away. And in a world where one misstep can ruin everything, you wonder, what does it take to catch a man's eye when even glancing too long is considered improper? The clock on the mantelpiece strikes 10, each chime echoing through the drawing room like a summons. You sit upright in your chair, needle poised above a half-finished piece of embroidery. Outside, carriage wheels rattle on the cobblestones, a constant reminder that London moves whether you are ready or not. Jane, your mother says from across the room, it is time to prepare. We are calling upon Mrs. Hartley at 11. You nod, though of course you already know. Victorian life does not forgive lapses of memory. Schedules are iron chains binding you to duty. Mary appears with your bonnet, gloves, and cloak. She drapes them across her arm as if presenting regalia to a queen. You stand, corset creaking faintly beneath your gown, and allow her to fasten the cloak around your shoulders. The gloves slip on next, soft, pale kid leather, covering hands that must never be seen. The walk to the Hartleys is not far, but it might as well be a parade. Your mother insists on the proper lady's pace. Small, measured steps, spine erect, eyes lowered. Your skirts sway around you with every movement, occasionally brushing against unsuspecting dogs or small children. Men tip their hats as you pass, and you acknowledge them with the slightest inclination of your head. Nothing more. Eye contact with strangers is unthinkable. The city watches you. And in Victorian London, the gaze of society is as binding as any law. At precisely 11 o'clock, you stand before the Hartleys' townhouse. To arrive early would imply eagerness, a lack of engagements. To arrive late would suggest carelessness. Punctuality is a social virtue as much as honesty or faith. The butler answers the door, solemn in livery. You and your mother hand him your visiting cards, small rectangles of stiff paper bearing your names in precise lettering. He receives them on a silver tray, as though the cards themselves are more important than the women who present them. Moments later, you are ushered into the drawing room. Mrs. Hartley rises, her gown a fashionable shade of plum. Beside her stands Charlotte, her daughter, newly engaged. Both curtsy. You and your mother return the gesture. No kisses, no embraces, not even a touch of hands. Physical affection is carefully rationed, if not forbidden outright. "How kind of you to call," Mrs. Hartley says, voice warm but measured. "The pleasure is ours," your mother replies, lowering herself onto a sofa. You perch beside her, balancing carefully on the edge of the seat. The steel hoops of your crinoline prevent you from sitting any other way. Conversation begins as it always does. Acknowledgement of important events, then swift retreat into safe topics. "We were pleased to hear your happy news," your mother says to Charlotte. Charlotte blushes appropriately, her gaze modestly lowered. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Mr. Edwards is very kind." And that is all. No mention of how they met, no discussion of the wedding, no questions about feelings. To pry would be vulgar. Engagements are not about romance, they are about arrangement. The conversation drifts next to weather, overcast but not raining. To sermons at church, uplifting but not too long. To a recent concert, accomplished but not showy. Opinions must never be extreme. Everything is described in the most moderate terms possible. In Victorian society, passion is suspicious, enthusiasm a fault. As they speak, you glance discreetly at Charlotte. She looks content, even radiant. Engagement agrees with her. Yet the distance she maintains from her fiancé, who is not present today, is striking. A man and woman promise to each other, yet barely permitted to exchange words without supervision. You wonder, if it is Thomas Fairchild in your future, will it feel the same? A dance of restraint, every word hidden behind propriety? Or will you find moments, however small, where something genuine slips through? The mantel clock ticks loudly, its hands creeping forward. You feel the weight of time pressing down. 14 minutes. 14 and a half. Then, just before the 15th minute strikes, your mother gives the slightest nod. You rise together. "It was a pleasure to see you," your mother says, curtsying once more. "The pleasure was ours," Mrs. Hartley replies. Charlotte lowers her eyes, curtsying again. And just like that, it is over. 15 minutes exactly, not 14, not 16. The unspoken rule has been observed with precision. To linger would be rude, to leave early would be insulting. The choreography of the morning call is as rigid as a waltz, and you have danced it successfully. Back on the street, your mother allows herself a faint smile. "That went well," she says. "Charlotte looked well, didn't she?" "Yes," you reply, the single word carrying all the weight required. In this world, well is the highest praise one may offer. The walk home is quiet, save for the clatter of a passing carriage and the ever-present call of a distant vendor hawking bread. You feel both relief and exhaustion. 15 minutes of conversation, yet it has drained you as though you'd run a mile. Every word measured, every gesture weighed, every silence filled with meaning. Tomorrow will bring another visit, another ritual, another chance to prove yourself against rules no one dares write down yet everyone knows. For now, you step back into your home, your gloves spotless, your composure intact, your reputation still safe. But beneath the calm, a single thought lingers. 15 minutes can decide everything. The parlor is quiet when you return, the air scented faintly with beeswax polish and smoke from the dying fire. Outside, the city hums with horses and carts, but inside the Wilson home silence reigns, broken only by the click of needles. Your embroidery hoop rests in your lap, a spray of flowers slowly emerging in colored silk against plain linen. Stitch after stitch, careful, precise. Victorian society despises idleness, especially in women. Idle hands are said to invite sin, so every respectable young lady keeps busy, needlework, sketching, piano practice. Your hands must always move, even if your heart longs to be still. Across from you, your mother works on her own needlepoint. She is a woman of endless composure, her back straight, her face serene, her stitches as steady as her judgment. For a long while, the only sound is thread pulling through cloth. Then, as casually as if she were remarking on the weather, she speaks. "I saw Mrs. Fairchild yesterday." The name lands softly but sharply, like the prick of a needle. You lower your eyes quickly to your work, willing your hands not to falter. Her son has returned from Oxford. Your pulse quickens. Thomas Fairchild. The young man with kind eyes, who once guided you through a dance without stepping on your feet, a rare achievement among your partners. His absence these many months had dulled the memory to a faint glow. Now suddenly it flares again. "That is pleasant," you say carefully, forcing your voice into the calm, neutral tone expected of you. Anything more, any warmth, any eagerness, would betray impropriety. Your mother watches you closely. She mentioned that he asked after you. You feel heat rise in your cheeks, a bloom of color you cannot entirely suppress. Yet you keep your eyes on your embroidery, your lips composed. "Did he?" That was civil of him. Your mother's mouth curves into the faintest smile. Not a grin, not an indulgent expression. Simply a trace of satisfaction that her daughter has reacted with restraint, not recklessness. To show too much interest in a man, especially an eligible one, is the surest way to lose him. In this world, indifference is a lure, eagerness a trap. The clock ticks steadily, filling the silence left by what neither of you says aloud. That the Fairchilds are wealthy, well-bred, and socially impeccable. That Thomas, as their eldest son, is heir to fortune and respectability. That your family, respectable though not wealthy, could benefit greatly from such a match. That your future happiness or misery may rest on how well you play this subtle game. You stitch another petal, the thread trembling slightly between your fingers. Later, when the embroidery is set aside, you sit at the piano. Your mother insists on daily practice. An hour at least, never more, lest you seem too ambitious. Music is a feminine accomplishment, meant to entertain in drawing rooms, not to earn a living. You play Mendelssohn, the notes even and graceful, your posture perfect, your expression serene. But inside, your thoughts are restless. Did Thomas truly ask about you? Did he remember that dance, that moment when your eyes met across the ballroom? Or was his inquiry nothing more than polite obligation, words spoken to fill silence? Mary enters quietly to set the fire. You glance at her in the mirror above the piano. Servants see everything. They carry gossip from house to house like bees carrying pollen. If Mary notices the flush in your cheeks or the tremor in your voice, word may spread before you can compose yourself. Even here in your own parlor, you are never entirely safe. That afternoon, you take tea with your cousin Emily. The ritual is less formal than the morning call, but the rules still apply. Cups are lifted delicately, conversation kept within approved topics. Emily chatters about her younger siblings, about a sermon at church, about a new novel by Mr. Dickens she is not sure she should be reading. You nod, smile, respond with moderation. Yet behind every polite phrase, your mind drifts back to the Fairchilds. To Thomas, returned from Oxford. To the possibility, remote, dangerous, exhilarating, that you may see him again. When Emily leaves, you sit once more at your embroidery frame. The flowers grow beneath your needle, petal by petal. Outside, London darkens into evening, gas lamps flickering in the fog. The city moves forward, indifferent to your hopes. And still you stitch. Because in this world, patience is not just a virtue. It is survival. Evening settles over London like a heavy velvet cloak. Outside, the fog drifts low across the cobblestones, swallowing the glow of gas lamps until they appear as faint halos in the mist. Inside your family's dining room, the table gleams under candlelight, silver and crystal arranged with military precision. Your father sits at the head as always, knife and fork moving with steady rhythm. Your mother occupies her place at the other end, elegant even in silence. James, your brother, is in high spirits, recounting the day's debates at his club. You, corseted and gloved, take your small bites carefully, every gesture deliberate. The meal proceeds with the usual restraint until your father clears his throat. He sets down his utensils, folds his napkin, and glances first at your mother, then at you. His voice is even but weighted. "We have received an invitation." Your mother looks up, her expression unreadable. "From whom?" "The Fairchilds," he replies. "A formal dinner this Thursday." The name strikes like a sudden chord. You force your fork to remain steady, though your hand trembles ever so slightly. Thomas Fairchild. His family. Their house. Their table. Their scrutiny. Ah, your mother says, her tone carefully measured, yet her eyes brighten. That is most agreeable. James smirks knowingly, glancing in your direction. A fine connection, wouldn't you say, father? Your father nods. The Fairchilds are a solid family. Banking interest, respectable lineage. Their son recently returned from Oxford. A man of promise. He says the words as though Thomas were a ledger, a balance sheet of assets and liabilities. You keep your gaze lowered, folding a small piece of bread between gloved fingers. Inside, your pulse thrums, but your face betrays nothing. It will be an important evening, your mother adds smoothly. Jane, we must consult with Madame Lenore about your gown. The blue silk may suffice, but perhaps something new is warranted. The suggestion carries weight. Commissioning a new gown is not undertaken lightly. It is an investment, a declaration. You nod modestly. As you think best, mother. The conversation turns briefly to other matters. James's club, your father's business dealings, but the undercurrent is clear. Thursday's dinner is not just a social occasion. It is an audition. Later that night, in the drawing room, your mother raises the topic again as you both take up your embroidery. The fire burns low, casting long shadows. You must be composed, Jane, she says without looking up from her stitches. Dinner at the Fairchilds is no trifling matter. Every word, every gesture will be observed. Yes, mother. Do not speak unless spoken to. But when you do, answer with clarity. Intelligent but never opinionated. Opinions are unbecoming in a young lady. I understand. Above all, maintain composure. Nothing repels a gentleman faster than eagerness. Her words are not cruel. They are practical, honed by years of playing the game herself. In her voice is both warning and hope. When the hour grows late, you retreat to your room. Mary helps you undress, carefully unpinning your hair until it falls loose across your shoulders. The corset unlaced, you breathe deeply for the first time all day. Relief washes through you, though it is fleeting. Did you hear, Mary? You ask quietly. The Fairchilds have invited us. Mary's hands pause only a moment before continuing. Yes, miss. Word travels quickly. A faint smile touches her lips. Mr. Fairchild is said to have grown quite distinguished at Oxford. You glance at her, startled. Servants always know. Their network is faster than any newspaper, sharper than any gossip column. Already, perhaps they are whispering about what Thursday night may bring. When she leaves, you sit at your dressing table, gazing at your reflection. In the glass you see not just yourself but the weight of expectation. Your family's hopes, society's scrutiny, your own secret longing. Thursday is only days away. And though you are taught to show nothing, to feel nothing, to betray nothing, inside you are aflame with anticipation. Will Thomas remember you? Will he notice? Will he care? You fold your hands tightly in your lap, steadying yourself with the only armor you are allowed: patience, restraint, and silence. Because in Victorian London, love begins not with passion, but with a perfectly executed dinner. Thursday arrives like the toll of a bell, heavy with expectation. From the moment you wake, the house hums with preparation, not just for the evening itself, but for the idea of it. A dinner at the Fairchilds is no ordinary social call. It is a stage, and tonight you will be on it. Mary begins the ritual early. The dressmaker delivered your gown last night, miss, she says, her arms full of pale blue silk. She spreads it carefully across the bed, the fabric shimmering faintly in the weak winter light. The sight alone is enough to make your pulse quicken. This is no day dress, no modest wool. This is armor made of elegance. Before you may wear it, however, comes the long ordeal of preparation. Mary sets the bath, a shallow copper tub hauled up from the scullery, the water warmed by the kitchen fire and scented with a few drops of rose oil. You step into it quickly. The room is cold, the fire in the grate too small to chase away the chill. The water is no luxury, it is brisk, perfunctory, the Victorian version of indulgence. When you emerge, shivering, Mary wraps you in linen towels. Already she is laying out the foundation of your attire: chemise, stockings, corset, petticoats. The corset is tighter than usual tonight, her laces pulling until you can scarcely inhale. It must be perfect, miss, she murmurs, tugging firmly. For the Fairchilds. By the time the petticoats, crinoline, and gown are added, you feel as though you have been encased in a fortress. The pale blue silk drapes over steel and bone, its neckline daring by daylight standards, revealing the elegant line of your collarbones and a modest sweep of shoulder. Any lower would be scandal, any higher would be dowdy. Victorian fashion is a game of inches, and each one is measured in reputation. Your hair takes the longest. Mary smooths and curls, pins and twists, weaving small silk flowers through the strands. "Hold still, miss," she says as another pin bites gently against your scalp. When at last she steps back, your reflection shows a woman transformed, serene, composed, almost unrecognizable. "You look beautiful, miss," Mary says softly. You offer her a faint smile. Beauty here is not yours to enjoy. It is currency, displayed and evaluated. Downstairs, your father and mother are already ready, dressed in their finest. Your father in black evening coat and starched shirt front, your mother in dark silk with a modest spray of pearls. James lingers by the fire, his cravat tied with studied nonchalance, though you catch him glancing at you with something between amusement and pride. "Fashion is suffering," he quips under his breath as you pass, echoing a phrase you yourself have thought countless times. You allow yourself a tiny smile. The carriage arrives promptly. Outside, the night is sharp with cold, the fog curling low along the ground. The horses stamp and snort, their breath misting in the air. As you step into the carriage, the silk of your gown whispers against the upholstery, the crinoline creaking faintly. The ride feels longer than it is. Your mother reviews expectations one last time, her voice calm but firm. You will sit where you are placed. Speak when addressed. No laughter louder than is fitting. And remember, composure above all. Yes, mother. The carriage turns onto one of London's fashionable streets. Ahead, the Fairchild townhouse glows, every window ablaze with gaslight. Music and voices drift faintly into the night air, promising warmth and scrutiny in equal measure. When the carriage halts, a footman in livery steps forward, opening the door with mechanical grace. Your father descends first, then offers his hand to you. You step carefully, the skirts of your gown threatening to tangle, the cobblestones slick beneath your boots. For a moment you pause, looking up at the Fairchild home. It rises tall and elegant, a beacon of wealth and expectation. Somewhere inside, Thomas waits. Your heart stirs, but your face remains composed. You cannot afford even a flicker of eagerness here. Inside, the entrance hall dazzles with light. Crystal chandeliers cast 1,000 reflections against marble floors. A maid takes your cloak, her expression neutral, but you know she sees everything. Another servant announces your arrival in ringing tones. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and Miss Jane Wilson. Every head turns as you enter. Every gaze assesses. You lower your eyes modestly, curtsy with perfect precision, and step forward into the blaze of society's theater. And there, standing near his mother, is Thomas Fairchild. Taller than you remember, shoulders broad beneath his evening coat, his expression calm yet attentive. He bows, not too shallow, not too deep, exactly as the rules require. "Miss Wilson," he says, his voice lower than you recall, steady as the candle flames. "How pleasant to see you again." Your heart leaps, but your reply is measured. "Mr. Fairchild, I trust Oxford has treated you well." The faintest smile touches his lips. It has. Though London, I must admit, has attractions Oxford cannot provide. The words are harmless on the surface, but beneath, like so much in this world, they carry weight. Is it flirtation? Courtesy? Or both? You cannot tell. What you do know is this: the evening has begun. And every moment from now until the last candle burns low will be watched, weighed, and remembered. The first thing that strikes you is the light. The Fairchild townhouse blazes as though determined to outshine the fog-bound street outside. Gas chandeliers drip from the ceilings, their globes glowing golden, their flames reflected in polished marble floors. Silver sconces line the walls, illuminating gilt-framed paintings of landscapes and ancestors, each gazing down with the silent weight of history. The air smells faintly of beeswax, roses, and something sharper, port wine perhaps. Servants move with silent efficiency, collecting cloaks, guiding guests. A maid takes yours, her eyes briefly flicking over the pale blue silk of your gown. She says nothing, but you know she will remember. Servants are the secret scribes of society, recording every detail in whispers behind closed doors. The butler's voice rises above the hum. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and Miss Jane Wilson." The announcement rings like a summons. Every head in the drawing room turns, every eye briefly resting on you before returning to its conversation. You curtsy deeply to your hosts, Mr. Fairchild, tall and austere, his hair silver at the temples, and Mrs. Fairchild, regal in emerald satin. Her gaze lingers on you for half a moment, cool, assessing. And then you see him. Thomas stands beside his mother, perfectly composed in black evening coat, waistcoat gleaming, cravat tied with studied care. He bows as you curtsy, his eyes steady on yours. "Miss Wilson," he says softly, though the words carry easily over the murmur of the room. "Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your voice as measured as your breath. "It is a pleasure to see you." His bow is flawless, deep enough to respect, shallow enough to avoid servility. A flicker of warmth touches his lips, quickly masked. In this world, even smiles must be rationed. Around you, the drawing room hums with restrained energy. The ladies stand in clusters, gowns a rainbow of silk and satin. Gloves flutter like pale wings as they lift fans or adjust necklaces. The gentlemen, their coats cut precisely, speak in low tones, their laughter never too loud, their expressions always controlled. No one sits. Sitting before dinner would suggest eagerness for the meal, which is vulgar. Instead, everyone remains upright, balancing teacups, glasses of sherry, or simply their own carefully constructed dignity. Across the room you notice Charlotte Hartley and her fiancé, Mr. Edwards. They stand close but not too close. Their hands never touch, their glances are fleeting, their smiles modest. If you did not know they were engaged, you would never guess. Such is the art of propriety, love displayed only by absence. You remain near your mother, exchanging pleasantries with Mrs. Fairchild. She inquires after your health, your piano practice, your needlework. Each question is as much a test as a kindness. Every answer you give must show refinement without ambition, education without arrogance, composure without coldness. And always, from the corner of your eye, you are aware of Thomas. Speaking to an elderly guest, offering a bow to a matron, acknowledging an acquaintance with the briefest of nods. Never too much attention to one person, never too little to another. He moves through the room like a chess piece, every step deliberate. The butler's voice rises again. Dinner is served. At once the room shifts. The choreography begins. The host, Mr. Fairchild, offers his arm to the highest-ranking female guest, a dowager in a turban of feathers and silk. The highest-ranking male escorts Mrs. Fairchild. Everyone else pairs off accordingly, the order determined by status. No one argues, no one hesitates. To misstep now would be social disaster. You find yourself paired with a middle-aged gentleman whose name you only half hear. He bows, you curtsy, and together you join the slow procession into the dining room. Ahead, you notice Thomas offering his arm to the feathered dowager, his posture impeccable. He glances back once, just briefly, and you wonder if it is by chance or by choice. The dining room dazzles. The table stretches long and gleaming, covered in white linen, silver candelabra, crystal goblets. Each place setting is an intimidating display of forks, knives and spoons, an arsenal of etiquette. You suppress the flutter in your chest. Choose the wrong utensil and you will never be forgotten. A footman pulls out your chair and you lower yourself carefully, mindful of your crinoline. Sitting gracefully is an art form in itself. Perch at the edge, back straight, skirt arranged in a perfect dome. As the guests settle, the room fills with the gentle scrape of chairs, the faint clink of glass. Conversation begins again, polite and balanced. The gentleman beside you leans in slightly. "I believe you know my nephew, Miss Wilson. A Mr. Pembroke. You danced at Lady Hamilton's ball last season. You remember instantly, an evening of sore toes and endless talk about horses." You smile politely. "Yes, indeed. Mr. Pembroke is an accomplished dancer. It is a lie, but a harmless one. In this world, harmony is more valuable than honesty." Across the table, Thomas sits too far to speak with you directly, but you feel his presence like a flame. Once your eyes meet. He looks away quickly, the corner of his mouth tightening as though he, too, must remind himself of the rules. Dinner has only just begun, and already the game is underway. The dining room is a theater of candlelight. Silver gleams, crystal sparkles, and wax tapers drip steadily down polished candelabra. Yet beneath all the glitter lies the sharpest of hierarchies, invisible but absolute. Where you sit at the table reveals your worth more clearly than any family crest. You glance down the long expanse of white linen. At the head sits Mr. Fairchild, flanked by the highest-ranking female guest, an aristocratic widow with a turban of violet silk. At the opposite end, Mrs. Fairchild presides beside a titled gentleman. Between them stretches a cascade of status. Lawyers, bankers, cousins, connections. Each seat carefully chosen, each guest silently weighed. Your own place is revealed when a footman pulls out a chair for you midway down the table. Not too near the bottom, not too near the top. A respectable position. You allow yourself a quiet breath of relief as you lower into the chair, adjusting your skirts with practiced grace. On your right, the middle-aged gentleman who escorted you and leans slightly closer. "I understand you are fond of music, Miss Wilson," he says, his voice heavy with port and pride. "My niece spoke of your performance at the Johnsons' musicale last season." You incline your head. "I do enjoy the piano, sir." He nods, clearly more interested in talking about his own collection of violins than in your modest reply. You let him, offering the occasional murmur of interest. To speak too much of yourself would be vanity, to appear uninterested would be rude. On your left sits a younger man, perhaps 30, with neatly trimmed side whiskers and a watch chain gleaming against his waistcoat. "The weather has been unusually clear," he remarks. "Yes," you reply, smiling gently. "It is quite a blessing in London." And thus the pattern is set. A lady converses with the gentleman on either side, never across the table, never loudly enough to draw undue attention. Words are measured like sips of wine, each phrase weighed before release. The courses arrive in a slow parade. Soup first, then fish, then roast fowl. With each comes a new utensil, and with it the threat of humiliation. You remind yourself of the rules, begin outward, work inward, and pray your hand does not falter. Every gesture is a test. A wrong fork, a clumsy motion, even too hearty a bite could mark you as lacking refinement. The corset presses relentlessly against your ribs, making each swallow shallow. Appetite is impossible. Appearance is everything. Across the table, men carve confidently, their plates heaped high. Around you, ladies take delicate portions, nibbling as though nourishment were unnecessary. Conversation swells, polite and controlled. Politics, religion, money, these topics are forbidden. Instead, guests speak of last week's opera, of paintings at the Royal Academy, of travel to Italy or the Lake District. Even admiration must be carefully restrained. Too much enthusiasm is vulgar, too little, cold. You catch a glimpse of Thomas several seats away. He is listening intently to an older gentleman, nodding at measured intervals, the picture of dutiful attention. Yet once, when the candlelight shifts, you find his gaze on you. Only for a moment. Enough to quicken your heart. He looks away almost instantly, but the flicker remains. The meal advances. Venison, then pheasant, then ices and syllabub. Footmen move like clockwork, serving, clearing, pouring. Not once does the rhythm falter. The very air hums with discipline, every detail orchestrated to display the Fairchild's wealth and order. And yet, beneath it all, tension simmers. You sense it in the too polite tones, in the way Mrs. Fairchild's eyes sweep the table, in the weight of every silence. Everyone here is being measured, not just for conversation or manners, but for potential alliances. Marriages, investments, reputations, all are negotiated invisibly beneath the clink of silver and the murmur of voices. At last, the final course is cleared. The room stills. Then Mrs. Fairchild glances to the dowager at her right. The woman inclines her head slightly, and Mrs. Fairchild rises. This too is ritual. Immediately, all the ladies rise together. Chairs scrape softly, silk rustles, voices murmur. With curtsies and faint smiles, you follow Mrs. Fairchild and her procession back to the drawing room, leaving the men to their port and cigars. As you step away from the table, you feel Thomas's eyes again. Just a flicker quickly hidden. But it is there. And in this world, even a glance across a dinner table can carry the weight of a promise. The moment the dining room door closes behind you, the atmosphere changes. The heavy undercurrent of hierarchy softens, though it does not disappear. Freed from the shadow of the men's voices and the clink of their port glasses, the ladies drift into the Fairchild drawing room like a flock of silk birds, settling on sofas and chairs arranged in careful clusters. The room glows with warmth, a fire in the grate, lamplight softened by silk shades, faint music humming from a harp in the corner. Yet even here, in this sanctuary of lace and fan feathers, rules reign. Conversation must flow but never spill, laughter must sparkle but never ring too loudly, admiration must be tempered into moderation. Mrs. Fairchild leads the way, as is her right. She steers Charlotte Hartley to a place beside her future mother-in-law, a subtle sign of approval. You notice the maneuver with a flicker of envy, how easily Charlotte's engagement has been absorbed into the choreography of propriety, her role already secure, her future sealed. You take a seat beside your mother, perching lightly at the edge to keep your skirts from engulfing the sofa. Other ladies arrange themselves in small circles, fans fluttering, heads bent. A few glance at you with interest, measuring. You are not engaged, not promised, but your invitation tonight signals something. They're watching. The conversation begins in safe waters. A recent sermon, uplifting though perhaps a touch long. A charity bazaar, successful though slightly too noisy. An opera at Covent Garden, beautifully sung, though not quite as refined as the Italian companies. Every statement softened, every judgment moderated. Extremes are vulgar. Then Mrs. Fairchild's voice cuts gently across the murmur. Miss Wilson, would you be so kind as to play for us? Your stomach clenches. This is the dreaded request. To refuse would be unthinkable. To appear eager would be equally dangerous. The only proper answer is modest consent. If you wish it, Mrs. Fairchild, you say, folding your gloved hands demurely, though I am certain there are others more accomplished present. Nonsense, she replies with a gracious smile. We have heard of your talent. All eyes turn to you. Rising, you glide to the pianoforte in the corner, skirts swaying like a bell with each step. Sitting is its own trial. The crinoline resists, the corset stiffens, but at last you arrange yourself with as much grace as possible. The sheet music before you is familiar, though you barely need it. A sonata by Mozart, technical enough to impress, restrained enough to avoid ostentation. You place your fingers on the keys, steadying the tremor in your hands. The first notes rise into the room, clear and bright. You keep your posture rigid, your expression composed. No swaying, no grimacing, no outward sign of passion. Emotion is for the music, not the performer. Each phrase is measured, each cadence precise, as though you are stitching notes instead of silk. When the final chord fades, the room fills with polite applause. Not too loud, not too prolonged, just enough to signify approval. You rise, curtsy slightly, and return to your seat. Your hands still tremble, though you fold them quickly into your lap, hoping no one notices. Your mother's eyes meet yours across the sofa. She inclines her head just faintly. Approval, restrained and silent. Half an hour passes in gentle conversation. Then, as predictably as the tide, the men return. The door opens, and with them comes the smell of cigars and the flush of port. They spread through the room in pairs and trios, some sinking heavily into chairs, others circulating with deliberate ease. You notice Thomas immediately. He enters behind his father, his coat carrying the faint scent of smoke, his cheeks touched with color. He speaks first with an elderly matron, then greets Charlotte and Mr. Edwards. His progress is steady, courteous, never rushed. Only after he has made his proper rounds does he approach you. Miss Wilson, he says, bowing slightly, your performance was exquisite. Mozart, was it not? Yes, you reply calmly, though your pulse flutters. His sonata in C major. You played with admirable feeling, he says, then adds quickly, but with appropriate restraint, of course. A corner of your mouth lifts. Thank you, Mr. Fairchild. And so begins the Victorian version of flirtation, a conversation that pretends to be impersonal. He asks about your music, your reading, your thoughts on an exhibition at the Academy. Nothing too romantic, nothing too passionate, nothing too revealing. Yet beneath each phrase lies another meaning, hidden but not invisible. Your mother watches from nearby, her expression composed but satisfied. Mrs. Fairchild's eyes flicker toward you as well, assessing, approving. You and Thomas are not alone, but you are allowed to orbit each other, slowly, properly, in full view of society's gaze. At 11, the first guests begin to leave. The signal is clear. The evening has ended. Farewells ripple through the room, curtsies and bows exchanged. Thomas bows once more before you. Until we meet again, Miss Wilson. Good evening, Mr. Fairchild, you reply, every syllable controlled. Outside the carriage waits. Inside, you finally allow yourself a small sigh of relief. The evening was a success. No missteps. And Thomas noticed you. But in Victorian London, nothing is certain until it is sealed by rules, signatures, and approval. Tonight was only the beginning. The ride home from the Fairchild dinner is cloaked in silence. The kind of silence that hums with unspoken meaning. The carriage rattles over cobblestones, the lamps outside casting fleeting halos of yellow light through the fogged windows. Your father sits upright, hands folded over his cane, his expression solemn. Your mother's gaze is distant, her lips pressed into a thin line of thought. At last your father speaks. A successful evening. It is high praise, though delivered with the bluntness of a man who does not believe in embellishment. Your mother inclines her head in agreement. Indeed. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned their new piano. She seemed most eager to hear Jane play again. The words linger. It is not simply music Mrs. Fairchild admired, it is you. The performance was not a test of skill, but of poise, of composure under scrutiny. And you passed. Back at home, the ritual of undressing begins. Mary unlaces your corset layer by layer, until you can breathe again. The pale blue silk gown is hung carefully, gloves tucked away, hairpins pulled free. Your reflection in the mirror shifts from composed lady to tired young woman, bare-shouldered and weary. Did you enjoy yourself, miss? Mary asks gently as she brushes out your hair. You hesitate. Enjoyment is not the correct word. Relief, perhaps. Anticipation, certainly. It was pleasant, you say, choosing the safest word in the lexicon of restraint. But your thoughts betray you. You see again the flicker in Thomas's eyes across the dining table, the way he approached you after the men returned from their cigars, the deliberate choice of words he offered. Feeling, but with appropriate restraint. The next morning brings confirmation that society noticed. 2 calling cards arrive before noon, both delivered by footmen whose livery speaks of respectable households. Your mother examines them with care. Mrs. Pembroke and Mrs. Fairfax, both eager to learn how the evening went. In truth, they are not eager to hear about the music or the food. They are eager to hear about you. Was Miss Wilson noticed? Did she stumble over a fork? Did Mr. Fairchild pay her particular attention? Gossip in London travels faster than steam engines, and reputations are its fuel. By afternoon, the answer comes not through gossip but through action. The bell rings. Mary appears in the drawing room doorway. Mr. Thomas Fairchild is here, miss? He asks if you and Mrs. Wilson are receiving visitors. Your heart leaps, though your face remains composed. Tell him we are, Mary. And inform my mother. You have perhaps 30 seconds to prepare. Enough time to smooth your skirts, check your hair in the mirror above the mantel, and pick up an embroidery hoop so that you appear occupied when he enters. The door opens. Thomas steps inside, his presence filling the room in a way that feels both imposing and strangely reassuring. He is dressed for morning calls, dark coat, perfectly tied cravat, polished boots. He carries his hat and gloves, setting them aside only after bowing. Miss Wilson, he says, voice steady. I trust you are well today. Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild. You indicate a chair. Please be seated. My mother will join us momentarily. He sits, posture precise, gloves tucked neatly into his hat. For a moment, silence stretches between you. Not uncomfortable, but taut, like the pause before music begins. I wish to thank you, he says at last, for your performance last night. Mozart's Sonata in C major, was it not? Yes, you reply, keeping your tone level. You played beautifully, he continues. Then, after the faintest pause, with admirable feeling, tempered of course by restraint. The compliment is wrapped so tightly in propriety it almost disappears. Yet you hear the echo beneath it. He is saying more than the words allow. That he noticed, that he was moved, that he dares to admire you, though admiration must be disguised as critique. Thank you, Mr. Fairchild, you answer softly. I am glad it pleased you. Before more can be said, your mother enters. Thomas rises immediately, bowing again. Mrs. Wilson, I hope I do not intrude. Not at all, Mr. Fairchild, she replies, seating herself beside you. We are most honored by your visit. Conversation turns to safer topics. His studies at Oxford, the exhibition soon to open at the Royal Academy, Mrs. Fairchild's health. Yet beneath each exchange flows a current of intent. He did not need to come in person to extend his mother's invitation for next week's musical evening. A servant could have carried a card. His presence here is a signal. After precisely 15 minutes, he rises. "I have taken enough of your time," he says politely. "Miss Wilson. Mrs. Wilson. Good day." Another bow, another fleeting glance that lingers longer than propriety allows, and he is gone. Your mother waits until the door has closed before turning to you. "Well," she says, her voice calm but her eyes bright. "It seems the Fairchilds have taken a particular interest." You lower your gaze, forcing composure. "Mrs. Fairchild is very kind. But in your chest, your heart is anything but restrained." It beats with the promise hidden inside his words. Admirable feeling, tempered by restraint. Morning calls are a ritual, a dance measured not by music but by minutes. 15 no more. 15 no less. Anything beyond the limit tips into scandal. The day after Thomas's visit, you are in your chamber when Mary enters carrying a small brown paper parcel. "Delivered by the Fairchild's footman, miss." Your heart lurches. Packages are unusual. Parcels from unmarried gentlemen to unmarried ladies. Dangerous. Mary places it on your dressing table. The paper is plain, tied with twine. No note on the outside, no clue. With trembling hands you undo the knot. Inside rests a slim volume bound in green cloth. Tennyson's new collection of poems. Your breath catches. A small card lies between the pages, a strong masculine hand forming careful words. "Miss Wilson, I thought you might enjoy these verses. I have marked one that reminded me of your playing. Respectfully, De Fairchild." Your fingers flip quickly to the marked page. A poem about music. One line delicately underlined. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. Your cheeks flush. Heat rises into your chest, though the room is cold. This is not mere politeness. This is a confession wrapped in ink. "Very fine binding," Mary says, her eyes lingering a fraction too long. "Servants always notice. Always know. Shall I place it on your shelf, miss?" You hesitate. To display it openly would be reckless. Gifts from suitors are reserved for those already engaged. You close the book firmly, sliding it into a drawer. "No, Mary. Thank you." Her lips twitch, not quite a smile. "As you wish." When she leaves, you sit alone with the drawer shut tight, the book hidden. Yet its presence pulses like a secret flame. The rules are clear. Such gifts should not exist. But Thomas has broken them, quietly, deliberately. And in doing so, he has invited you into a dangerous intimacy. The rest of the morning unfolds as if nothing has happened. At least that is the performance. You take up your embroidery, your mother her correspondence. The parlor is filled with silence, punctuated only by the tick of the clock and the scratch of her pen. Yet your mind is not on flowers stitched in silk. It is on page 43 of Tennyson, on the curve of Thomas's script, on what it means that he thought of you when he read those lines. At 11 the bell rings again. Another visit. This time it is Mrs. Hartley and Charlotte, all smiles and rustling skirts. Charlotte glows with the radiance of an engaged woman. She settles across from you, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "Have you heard about Mrs. Pembroke?" Charlotte asks, her voice lowered, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of forbidden gossip. Your mother's brows lift. "What of her?" "She was seen driving in Hyde Park with Mr. Foster. Alone." The words hang heavy. A married woman riding without a chaperone with a known flirt. The scandal is instant, devastating. "Perhaps there was a footman," your mother suggests mildly, though doubt lingers in her tone. Charlotte shakes her head. "Completely alone. My cousin's wife saw them herself." The implication spread like spilled ink. For Mr. Foster, it will mean little beyond raised eyebrows at his club. For Mrs. Pembroke, it could mean social exile. One carriage ride, one rumor, and her reputation crumbles. As Charlotte prattles on about her trousseau, your thoughts circle back to the book hidden upstairs. One gift, one secret could undo everything. After the Hartleys depart, your mother sets down her needlework. Her expression is calm, but her voice is deliberate. "You see, Jane, how fragile reputations are. Guard yours well. Appearances are everything." "Yes, mother, You answer, though inside you ache. Because what she does not know is that appearances are already fraying. A green cloth volume hides in your drawer, humming with meaning that propriety cannot contain. That afternoon you attend a charity committee meeting at the vicarage. Ladies of good family gather to discuss soup kitchens and clothing drives. Their voices are sweet, their words benevolent, but you know that beneath every phrase lies a measure of status. Even charity is performance. As tasks are assigned, you to collect used clothing, others to distribute blankets. You nod dutifully. But your mind drifts again. To the feel of paper under your hands, to the secret thrill of a rule broken for you. By the time you return home, the day has blurred into fog. But upstairs, hidden in your drawer, waits the book. And with it, the promise that Thomas Fairchild has already stepped beyond the boundaries of propriety. For now you will obey the rules. You will stitch your flowers, sip your tea, curtsy at the right angle. But you know, one book, one poem, one secret line, has already changed everything. London thrives on whispers. In drawing rooms and carriages, across tea tables and garden walks, words flow like invisible currency, traded and treasured with equal care. This morning you see just how costly those whispers can be. You and your mother are seated in the drawing room when Mrs. Pembroke's name comes up again, this time from Emma Parker's mother, who calls with calculated innocence. She lowers her voice as though confiding a sacred secret. "It is most unfortunate," she says, eyes darting between you and your mother. "My maid tells me Mrs. Pembroke was not only seen with Mr. Foster but returned to her house at dusk without her husband. Entirely unaccompanied." The way she says it leaves no room for doubt, though in truth there may be little more than rumor. Yet you know how this city works. Scandal does not need truth to live, only repetition. Your mother's face remains composed. "I am sure there is some explanation," she replies, her tone cool as porcelain. "We must be charitable." But after the visitor departs, she turns to you with quiet firmness. "Let this be a lesson, Jane. Appearances are not merely important, they are everything. A reputation takes years to build and one moment to destroy." You nod, though your stomach twists. The lesson is not lost on you. In your drawer upstairs lies a book from Thomas Fairchild. If discovered, it could be your own carriage ride scandal, your own undoing. That afternoon, you walk with Emma Parker and Sarah Whitmore, both members of your charitable committee. The air is sharp with coal smoke, fog hanging heavy over the street. Conversation begins innocuously, shawls, sermon notes, ribbons. But soon, Emma steers it, as she always does, toward eligible gentlemen. "Thomas Fairchild has returned from Oxford," she says, voice light, though her eyes gleam with something sharper. "My mother says he is to join his father in business this spring. Quite the prospect for some fortunate young lady." "Indeed," Sarah adds smoothly, "and so handsome. I remember him turning pages at Lady Johnson's musicale. He has a natural way with music, don't you think?" You keep your expression carefully neutral, though your pulse quickens. "He is attentive," you reply, eyes modestly downcast. Emma presses on. "Mrs. Fairchild is hosting her musicale next week. We have been invited. Will you attend, Jane?" "Yes," you say, calm as still water. "Our family received an invitation." Her smile tightens, polite but edged. "How lovely. Perhaps you will play for us again." The implication is obvious. The musicale will not simply be about music. It will be about position, about which young lady can capture Thomas's notice under his mother's watchful eye. Emma means to compete. By the time you part ways, your head aches from the strain of composure. Competition wrapped in courtesy is exhausting. You long to confess your anxiety to someone, anyone. But even with your own maid, caution is required. Servants gossip too. That evening, James joins you and your parents at dinner, his mood unusually jovial. He has been at his club all afternoon, no doubt drinking brandy and playing billiards with his set. His freedoms, late nights, loud laughter, politics and money, are the privileges of his gender. "I saw Thomas Fairchild today," James says casually between bites of roast beef. "He asked after you, Jane?" Your fork pauses, hovering above your plate. "Did he?" "He wanted to know if you enjoy writing, what books you read, whether you favor exhibitions or concerts." James grins, his tone teasing. "Sounds like someone's making inquiries." Your father clears his throat. "The Fairchilds are an excellent family. Old money, sound reputation. If the young man is interested, it would be a most advantageous match." Your mother says nothing, but the faintest smile curves her lips. For her, this is confirmation. The evening at the Fairchilds was not mere politeness. It was the beginning of something deliberate. You lower your gaze, forcing your voice into calm neutrality. Mr. Fairchild is very civil. Inside, though, your heart hammers. Civil does not cover the book hidden upstairs, the underlined line of poetry, the look in his eyes when he offered you his hand at the piano. After dinner, James disappears into the study with your father. Your mother sits with you in the drawing room, her needle flashing in the lamplight. "We will need to consider your wardrobe," she says matter-of-factly. "That blue gown is lovely, but something new for the musicale would be wise. A pale green silk, perhaps." You understand at once. A new gown is not just clothing. It is investment, approval, strategy. It means she too believes the Fairchild connection may soon become permanent. That night, alone in your room, you retrieve the book from your drawer. The green cloth gleams faintly in the lamplight. You open to the marked poem again, tracing the underlined line with your fingertip. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. It is reckless, improper, a scandal waiting to ignite. And yet you cannot stop yourself from pressing the book briefly to your chest, your heart pounding as though Thomas's hand itself rested there. Gossip may ruin reputations, but secrets, you realize, are even more dangerous. The days before the Fairchild musicale unfold like the careful stitching of a gown, measured, precise, and threaded with expectation. Your mother summons the dressmaker, who arrives with armfuls of silk and a portfolio of sketches. "Pale green," your mother insists, glancing at you over her spectacles. "Something modest but refined. Nothing ostentatious." The dressmaker nods, measuring your waist with a tape pulled snug against your corset. "This shade will bring out the color of her eyes," she murmurs, unfurling a bolt of shimmering silk. You stand still, arms lifted, while pins prick and fabric rustles. Every movement is toward one purpose: to present you as a worthy match. Fashion here is not decoration, it is strategy. By the time the gown is finished, its soft green sheen makes your skin glow, the cut elegant without excess. When you try it on, even Mary's lips part in admiration. "You look like you belong there, miss," she whispers, almost reverent. The night of the musicale arrives. Your carriage joins the steady stream rolling toward the Fairchild townhouse, wheels crunching on cobblestones. Through the window you glimpse the blaze of light spilling from tall windows, hear the faint drift of music already in the air. Inside, the house dazzles even more than before. Guests mingle in the grand drawing room, voices rising in polite harmony. Mrs. Fairchild greets you warmly, her eyes lingering on your gown with clear approval. "Such a charming color, Miss Wilson. Quite distinctive." But the compliment sharpens the moment you see Emma Parker across the room. She is also in green. Her gown, slightly darker, gleams under the chandeliers, her smile tight as she approaches. "What a coincidence, Miss Wilson," she says sweetly, her eyes hard. "We appear to share the same taste." You dip your head. Green is fashionable this season. Her laugh is light but edged. "Yes, though some colors flatter more than others, don't you think?" The duel is silent but sharp, waged not with weapons but with fabric and tone. Around you, other young ladies watch with discreet curiosity. Everyone knows what is at stake: Thomas. The evening begins with performances. A professional singer fills the room with Italian arias, followed by a violinist whose bow dances with practiced skill. Then your name is called. Mrs. Fairchild's voice carries above the murmur. "Miss Wilson, would you favor us with a piece?" Every eye turns. Your pulse quickens, but you glide forward, skirts whispering over the carpet. The new gown rustles softly as you settle at the pianoforte. And there, before you can begin, Thomas steps forward. "May I turn pages for you, Miss Wilson?" A ripple moves through the room. Page turning is not a mere courtesy. It places him beside you in public, in intimacy disguised as assistance. You incline your head. "That would be most kind, Mr. Fairchild." He takes his place at your side, close enough that you sense the warmth of him, the faint sandalwood of his cologne. You begin Mendelssohn's Song without words, fingers steady on the keys. The music flows, lyrical but restrained, every note a careful balance between passion and propriety. At the turn of each page, Thomas's hand brushes close to yours. Once, just once, his finger grazes the edge of your glove. The contact is fleeting, yet your heart jolts as though struck. When the piece ends, applause rises, polite, measured, but generous. You stand, curtsy, and Thomas offers his hand to help you up. Another liberty, small but unmistakable. Exquisite, he murmurs, his eyes meeting yours for the briefest second. You retreat to your seat, pulse still racing. Across the room, Emma Parker watches, her smile brittle, her fan fluttering too fast. She knows what everyone else knows. Thomas chose you in that moment. Later, during refreshments, Thomas discreetly brings you a glass of punch. He does not linger, too obvious, but the gesture itself is enough. A gift of attention in a world where every move matters. You sip slowly, aware of Emma's gaze still burning. Rivalries in silk, silent battles fought with glances and gestures. Tonight you have won a round. But victory is dangerous. In this society, triumph invites envy, and envy fuels gossip. You can already feel it stirring, whispers forming in the corners of the room. Still, as the night draws on, one truth remains steady. Thomas Fairchild has chosen to stand beside you, page by page, note by note. And in a world ruled by rules, even the smallest gesture of defiance can feel like destiny. The morning of the outing dawns bright and sharp, rare for London's winter. Sunlight pierces through fog like a reluctant promise, glinting off frosted rooftops. You wake early, too restless to sleep, though propriety demands composure. Mary lays out your walking ensemble. A burgundy wool day dress with a fitted bodice, matching pelisse and bonnet trimmed in ribbon. Functional but elegant. She fastens the final pin with satisfaction. You look lovely, miss, just right for the academy. Downstairs, your mother is already dressed, her presence the inevitable chaperone. You remind yourself, today is not a tryst but an exhibition. A gentleman never escorts a young lady without her mother close by. At precisely 2, the Fairchild carriage arrives. The footman announces it, and Thomas himself steps into the drawing room, bowing deeply. His morning coat is dark, his cravat tied with mathematical precision, his boots gleaming. In his hand he carries gloves and a top hat, which he removes only after seating himself. Mrs. Wilson. Miss Wilson, he greets, his tone warm yet proper. I trust the day finds you well. Your mother answers first. Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild. The weather is most obliging. He smiles faintly. Indeed, London does not often grant such grace. His eyes flicker briefly to you, the admiration clear though swiftly veiled. The carriage bears you through crowded streets. Vendors call, horses clatter, smoke curls from endless chimneys. Thomas remarks on familiar landmarks, directing most of his words to your mother but letting his gaze return to you often enough to make the air between you hum with meaning. At the Royal Academy, the exhibition is already crowded with fashionable Londoners. Ladies in feathers and silks sweep through the galleries, gentlemen lean on canes and murmur assessments of brushwork they barely understand. The smell of oil paint mingles with coal smoke and perfume. Thomas purchases your tickets, a small but significant act. In society's language, it declares responsibility, attention, intent. Inside, the 3 of you drift from canvas to canvas. Sweeping landscapes, portraits of nobility, allegorical scenes heavy with symbolism. Thomas pauses before a pastoral, tilting his head. The light is admirable. It almost feels as if one could step into the field. Yes, you agree softly. It seems alive. Your mother nods approvingly at your restrained remark. Too much enthusiasm would be unseemly, too little, cold. As you move, whispers follow. Familiar faces appear. Emma Parker and her mother, standing near a portrait of a Roman hero. Emma greets Thomas with exaggerated warmth. Mr. Fairchild, what a delight. And Miss Wilson. Mrs. Wilson. Such fortune to see you here. Her gown is an elaborate confection of plum silk, her fan snapping open like a weapon. She slides to Thomas's side, pointing at the painting. Don't you think the artist has captured the nobility of expression? It reminds me of my uncle's estate in Derbyshire. You must visit sometime. The invitation hangs too heavy, too obvious. Thomas inclines his head politely. Perhaps. Though my time is much engaged in London. His next words are deliberate. Miss Wilson and I were just admiring a portrait in the other gallery. Allow me to show you? He turns slightly toward you, offering the choice. Heat floods your cheeks, though your face remains composed. That would be most agreeable, Mr. Fairchild. Together, with your mother close behind, you walk toward the next room. Emma lingers behind, her smile frozen in place, her fan fluttering faster than before. The portrait Thomas indicates is of a young woman in white, her eyes lowered modestly, her hands folded. It is unremarkable, yet he studies it as though it holds secrets. "I thought of you when I saw this earlier," he murmurs, low enough that only you can hear. The composure. The quiet dignity. Your breath catches. Compliments are rare, dangerous things. Yet his tone is steady, respectful. To any onlooker, it is commentary on art. To you, it is something more. Your mother clears her throat softly, a reminder of her presence. You step back, allowing the moment to dissolve into civility. For the next hour you move through galleries, exchanging polite observations with acquaintances, greeting matrons, nodding at gentlemen. Yet each time Thomas leans slightly toward you, each time his eyes linger, the world sharpens. At last he suggests refreshments. A small tea room adjoins the gallery, filled with murmurs and the clatter of porcelain. He arranges for tea, speaking easily with the waiter. When the cups are placed before you, he ensures yours is steady, his hand brushing the edge of the saucer just before you take it. The gesture is nothing, and yet it is everything. Afterward, he escorts you and your mother back to the carriage. At your door he bows. "Thank you for your company, Mrs. Wilson." "Miss Wilson. It has been a most agreeable afternoon." Your mother responds warmly. "The pleasure was ours, Mr. Fairchild." His eyes flick to yours once more. "Until next we meet." And then he is gone, his carriage wheels rattling into the dusk. You stand in the hall, the day echoing in your chest like a sonata's final chord. He has not spoken words of love, nor anything so improper. But he has said enough. And in Victorian London, enough is everything. The days after the Royal Academy outing settle into a rhythm of anticipation. Morning calls, embroidery, polite conversation. All the ordinary motions of life, but beneath them lies the hum of something extraordinary. The volume of poetry still waits in your drawer, its green cloth binding like a secret heartbeat. On Thursday morning, Mary discovers you staring at it, though you quickly close the drawer. "Shall I dust your bookshelves today, miss?" she asks casually, eyes too knowing. "No, Mary. Not today." Her lips twitch, almost a smile. She knows enough not to pry, but servants see everything. At breakfast, your father reads the newspaper while your mother sips chocolate, already planning the day's calls. "Mrs. Pembroke has not been seen since the carriage incident," she remarks, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Such disgrace lingers. Remember, Jane, one slip is all it takes." The reminder strikes deeper than she intends. You nod, silently. Upstairs in your room lies evidence of your own slip, not yet known but perilously close. Later that morning, a visitor arrives, Mr. Thomas Fairchild himself. He enters with composure, bowing to your mother first, then to you. He carries no parcel this time, no obvious gift, yet as he settles into the chair opposite you, he glances toward the small writing desk in the corner. The desk where your drawer holds the poetry. Your heart stutters. Could he know you've hidden it there, as though his eyes can pierce the wood? Conversation flows with proper ease. Art, music, his father's business, your charitable committee. But then, almost casually, he says, "I wonder, Miss Wilson, if you are fond of Tennyson?" The words strike like a pebble across glass. Your mother looks up, faintly surprised. "His verse is popular, though perhaps a touch sentimental," she says. You keep your hands folded, your expression neutral. "I find his works moving." Thomas inclines his head, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "Indeed. There is a line in one of his poems that struck me recently. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. The world seems to still." He has said it, out loud, quoting the very line he underlined for you. Your mother nods approvingly, oblivious to the undercurrent. A charming thought. But Thomas's eyes are on you, steady, unblinking. Do you understand? Do you accept what I risked in sending it? Your reply must be flawless. Too cold and you wound him. Too warm and you betray yourself before your mother. You choose the narrow path between. "Yes," you say softly. "It is a beautiful line. One worth remembering." His shoulders ease just slightly. A silent understanding passes between you. The book was not a careless gift. It was deliberate, intentional, a signal disguised as sentiment. After 15 minutes, he rises, bowing once more. "Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson, thank you for your time. Until the musicale." When he is gone, your mother gives you a long, assessing look. Mr. Fairchild grows attentive. You lower your eyes. He is civil. Civil, she repeats, though her tone suggests she hears more in your voice than you intend. That evening, alone in your chamber, you take the book from the drawer again. You trace the line once more, fingertips tingling as though the page itself holds his touch. This is no longer simply about courtship or propriety. It is about a conversation carried in silence, hidden between lines of poetry and glances across crowded rooms. And though you know the rules, that gifts between unmarried people are forbidden, that secrets can unravel reputations faster than rumor, you also know this: you will not return the book. It is yours. And so, perhaps, is he. Hyde Park on a clear winter morning is not merely a park, it is a stage. The gravel paths, the wide expanse of the Serpentine, the carriages circling Rotten Row, all are part of society's theater, where reputations are displayed as openly as gowns and gloves. Your mother suggests the outing. Fresh air will do you good, Jane. And there are always acquaintances to be met. You know what she means. Walks in Hyde Park are not about health, they are about being seen. Mary dresses you in a plum-colored wool walking dress, practical but elegant, with a matching bonnet trimmed in satin. Gloves, of course, for no lady would appear in public with bare hands. Your mother wears dark silk, her presence once again your shield and your surveillance. The carriage delivers you to the park gates, where streams of London's fashionable world already promenade. Horses snort, carriages rattle, feathers bob in the cold breeze. Men tip their hats, women incline their heads, every gesture a note in the symphony of propriety. It does not take long before you see him. Thomas Fairchild rides along Rotten Row, his posture tall and confident, his horse a sleek chestnut. He reins in slightly when he notices you, guiding the animal closer to the path where ladies walk. He raises his hat, bowing from the saddle. Miss Wilson. Mrs. Wilson. A pleasure to see you on such a fine morning. Mr. Fairchild, your mother returns, her tone smooth. Your pulse quickens. You lower your eyes modestly, but when you glance up again, his gaze is steady on you, warm even in the sharp air. Before the moment can deepen, a familiar voice interrupts. Mr. Fairchild. Miss Wilson. Emma Parker approaches with her mother, her gown in an eye-catching shade of crimson. The choice is deliberate, bold, meant to draw attention, perhaps to contrast with your more restrained plum. Miss Parker, Thomas says politely, bowing. Emma laughs lightly, too lightly. What fortune to find us all here at once. Hyde Park seems to gather the best of London this morning. Her mother adds, indeed. Why, only yesterday we saw Lady Ashcroft driving alone with her cousin. Some found it improper, though surely family excuses such things. The remark is bait. Another woman's supposed indiscretion dangled for discussion. Your mother replies with her usual restraint. Family is always a comfort, provided propriety is observed. Emma leans closer to Thomas, her smile coy. Do you often ride in the park, Mr. Fairchild? Perhaps we might arrange to ride together one morning. My father keeps excellent horses. The suggestion is bold, too bold. Your breath stills, though outwardly you remain composed. All eyes are on Thomas. His answer matters. He hesitates only a heartbeat before replying. I would be honored, Miss Parker, though my engagements are numerous at present. Perhaps another time. His gaze shifts deliberately back to you. I did, however, hope to speak with Miss Wilson and Mrs. Wilson about the exhibition next week. Might I call tomorrow? Emma's fan flutters too quickly, the smallest crack in her composure. She forces a smile. How charming. I do hope you'll have time for everyone, Mr. Fairchild. Indeed, he says, bowing slightly. Society affords many opportunities. The conversation drifts to safer topics. The weather, a recent sermon, the frost on the Serpentine. Yet beneath the surface, currents swirl. Emma circles the conversation like a hawk, inserting herself at every pause, every lull. But Thomas's remarks, though unfailingly courteous, return again and again to you. A book he thought you might enjoy, a painting he recalls you admired, the musicale at which you will both perform. The rivalry is silent but unmistakable, fought with colors of silk and tones of voice. Other walkers notice, their glances sharp with curiosity. Whispers ripple like the wind across the frozen water. Miss Wilson. Miss Parker. Mr. Fairchild. At last, Emma and her mother drift away, crimson skirts swirling. Emma's eyes linger on you, bright with unspoken challenge. Your mother exhales softly once they are gone. You see, Jane, competition is everywhere. You must remain steady. Yes, mother. Thomas inclines his head from horseback. Until tomorrow, Miss Wilson. His eyes linger, warm despite the frost. Mrs. Wilson. He rides on, the chestnut's hooves striking rhythm on the frozen path. You watch him go, your heart unsteady but your face serene. Around you, the park continues its performance. Children laughing, dogs barking, feathers bobbing, gossip swirling. But beneath it all, one truth holds steady. Thomas Fairchild chose you in that moment before the entire stage of Hyde Park. And though the whispers will continue, though Emma will plot, though society will watch, his words have already promised tomorrow. The morning after Hyde Park is quiet, but tension hums beneath the surface like the plucked string of a violin. You sit at breakfast, nibbling at toast more out of duty than appetite, when your father clears his throat. I spoke with Mr. Fairchild last evening, he says, his newspaper folded neatly beside his plate. Your mother's eyes lift at once. Oh. He expressed interest in a new banking venture. Foreign investments. Sound steady growth. I intend to consider it. You sense more than finance in his tone. This is not merely business, it is evaluation. A gentleman does not invest in another's enterprise without trust, without belief in his integrity. And if Mr. Fairchild is to be more than a partner in trade, he must first be tested as one. Your mother's gaze flickers toward you, then returns to her teacup. Nothing more is said, but the silence speaks volumes. Later that afternoon, as promised, Thomas calls. He arrives promptly, bowing with customary precision. Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson. Thank you for receiving me. The three of you sit in the drawing room. Conversation begins with polite trivialities, last night's frost, a charity bazaar, a sermon at St. Paul's. But soon your father joins you, his presence altering the room's balance. He settles heavily into his chair, hands resting on his cane, eyes sharp. Mr. Fairchild, he says evenly, I understand you have returned to assist your father in business. Yes, sir, Thomas replies without hesitation. I have completed my studies at Oxford and am now engaged at our firm. Your father nods slowly. Banking is no simple trade. It requires judgment, reliability, the ability to bear responsibility not only for oneself, but for others who entrust their livelihoods. Thomas meets his gaze steadily. Indeed, sir. I take that responsibility seriously. My father has entrusted me with several accounts already, and I work closely with him on new ventures. We aim always for prudence rather than reckless gain. The answer pleases your father, though he betrays nothing beyond a slight lift of his brows. Prudence is the foundation of reputation, and reputation, once lost, is seldom regained. Your mother's lips curve faintly. You know she hears the double edge in his words, not just reputation in business but in life. The conversation continues, circling investments, foreign markets, even the merits of new railways. You sit silently, hands folded, listening. It is not your place to speak, but every word matters to you. This is more than commerce. It is the weaving together of futures. If your father finds Thomas lacking, no affection, no poetry, no music will matter. At last your father leans back. Sound reasoning, he says curtly. We shall speak further. It is not effusive, but in your father's language it is approval. The rest of the visit is lighter. Thomas turns to you, his voice softer though still proper. There is an exhibition at the British Museum next month. Antiquities from Greece. Would you and Mrs. Wilson have interest? Your mother smiles. I believe that would be agreeable. The bell chimes softly. The quarter hour has passed. Thomas rises, bowing to each of you in turn. Mrs. Wilson. Miss Wilson. Good day. When the door closes behind him, silence lingers. Then your father speaks again, his tone measured. A steady young man. Sensible. Your mother nods. And attentive. Both turn their eyes toward you. You lower yours quickly, heat rising to your cheeks. He is civil. Civil, your father repeats, though you sense approval beneath the word. That evening, as you sit with your embroidery, James returns from his club, his mood careless and amused. I hear Fairchild is sniffing around, he says with a grin. James, your mother warns sharply. He shrugs. Well, he is. Half the gentlemen at the club were talking about it. Seems the entire city expects a match. Your needle falters for half a stitch. Entire city. The words rattle inside you. What began as quiet glances and hidden lines of poetry is already becoming the subject of London's endless chorus of gossip. When you retire for the night, you open the drawer and take out the book once more. You run your fingers along the underlined line, whispering it silently to yourself. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. It is not only your father who weighs Thomas Fairchild's worth. It is the city itself. And you too are being measured, every gesture, every word, every stitch in your gown. Tonight, though, you allow yourself to believe. Your father called him steady. Your mother called him attentive. James, careless as he is, confirmed that London is already watching. Perhaps you think as you close the book, the future is closer than you dare hope. The morning after the Fairchild musicale, London hums with whispers. They travel faster than hansom cabs, seeping into drawing rooms, whispered across tea tables, carried even by maids polishing silver. By breakfast you already feel the weight of them. Your mother is at her writing desk, sorting through a small pile of calling cards delivered by footmen. Mrs. Fairfax, Mrs. Denham, even Lady Ashcroft, she murmurs, brows lifting. It seems everyone suddenly remembers our existence. You know why? Last night, Thomas Fairchild chose to stand beside you at the piano, turning your pages as though it were the most natural thing in the world. The gesture was nothing, polite, proper even, but in this society nothing is ever only itself. Already, the city has translated it into declaration. Your father lowers his newspaper just enough to speak. Word at the club is that Fairchild made his intentions clear. Your cheeks warm though you keep your face composed. Intentions, father? Courting, he says bluntly. A young man doesn't stand at a lady's side before half of London unless he means something by it. Your mother adds, Mrs. Fairchild was beaming. That alone will be taken as approval. The conversation shifts to other matters, railways, charitable committees, but your pulse does not steady. The musicale has altered something intangible but irrevocable. Where yesterday you were a possibility, today you are a contender. Later in the morning, Emma Parker arrives. She sweeps into the drawing room in pale lavender, her fan snapping open with a crack. Her smile is too wide, her tone too bright. Miss Wilson, what a triumph you were last night, she says, each word sugared with poison. Your playing was so admired. And of course, Mr. Fairchild's attentions were most notable. You incline your head, careful. You are kind, Miss Parker. She leans closer, voice dropping. Of course one must be careful. Such attention invites scrutiny. I hear Mrs. Pembroke began her fall with something as small as a carriage ride. The barb lands, sharp and deliberate. Emma is reminding you of how fragile reputation can be. That admiration one night can become condemnation the next. Your mother intervenes smoothly, steering the conversation to Charlotte Hartley's wedding preparations. Emma's smile falters, but she recovers, prattling about trousseaux and lace until it is time for her to leave. When the door closes, your mother exhales softly. You must tread carefully, Jane. Envy is often sharper than admiration. That afternoon, another visitor comes, Mrs. Fairchild herself. She arrives in a carriage emblazoned with the family crest, her presence in your home nothing less than a statement. My dear Mrs. Wilson, she says warmly, though her eyes are cool with calculation. And Miss Wilson, what a pleasure. You curtsy, heart thudding. She praises your performance, inquires after your health, and speaks of her delight at your composure during the musicale. Then, as though offhand, she adds, I do hope you will honor us again soon. My son spoke highly of your conversation at the academy. He found your observations refreshing. It is not a promise, not even a proposal, but it is enough. Her visit alone is the equivalent of a banner unfurled in society's marketplace. The Fairchild matriarch does not call on just anyone. After she departs, your mother's eyes are bright, though her voice remains measured. She approves. That is no small thing. By evening, the ripple has become a current. A neighbor calls with exaggerated cheer, remarking that she just happened to hear of your triumph. James returns from his club with a grin. Half the fellows were talking of you. They say Fairchild means business. Your father, ever cautious, tempers the excitement. We shall see. Appearances can mislead. But even he cannot hide the note of pride in his voice. Alone in your chamber that night, you sit at your dressing table, the book of poetry open before you. You trace the underlined line again, but this time it feels different. No longer secret, no longer dangerous. It feels almost like confirmation. For weeks you have walked a tightrope, balancing propriety with feeling, silence with hope. Last night shifted the balance. Society itself now watches, waiting. Thomas has not yet spoken plainly, but he has spoken enough for others to interpret. And in this world, interpretation is as binding as words. You close the book, tucking it back into the drawer. Tomorrow will bring more visits, more whispers, more careful steps. But tonight, for the first time, you allow yourself to imagine it openly. Not just the glances, the music, the poetry, but the possibility of a future with Thomas Fairchild. The musicale was not the end. It was the beginning. By the end of the week, the Fairchild musicale has become more than an evening's entertainment. It has become a touchstone. In parlors and over tea, people mention it with knowing smiles. Not the music, not the ices, not the flowers on the tables, but the way Thomas Fairchild stood beside you at the piano, the way his mother beamed. London has translated polite gestures into intention, and now the story grows on its own. Your mother is the first to name it openly. "We must be cautious," she tells you one morning as Mary adjusts your hair. Mrs. Fairchild approves, yes, but approval is not yet an engagement. Do not mistake attentions for promises. "Yes, mother," you reply, though the reassurance feels thin. That afternoon your father calls you into his study. His desk is strewn with papers, ledgers, investment reports, notes in his heavy hand. He gestures for you to sit. "Jane," he begins, his tone brisk, "Fairchild's banking firm is solid. Their reputation sound. Still, I will not risk family fortune for sentiment. If you are to be tied to them, I must see steadiness, not only in business but in character." Your hands fold tightly in your lap. "I understand, father." He studies you over his spectacles. "Do you wish this match?" The question shocks you. Wishes are seldom considered in such matters. Matches are arrangements, alliances. Yet the heat in your cheeks betrays you. "I believe Mr. Fairchild is civil." Your father's lips twitch, almost a smile. "Civil is not a fault. We shall see if it is enough." Meanwhile, pressure rises from the other side of the equation. A few days later, Mrs. Fairchild invites you and your mother to tea. The drawing room is impeccable, the china delicate, the conversation smooth. Yet beneath every word lies intent. "My Thomas," she says with maternal pride, "has always admired refinement. A lady who is educated but not boastful, who plays with skill but not ostentation, who comports herself with dignity. Such qualities are rare." You murmur polite responses, but her gaze never leaves you. Every remark is both compliment and test, measuring whether you fit the shape of her expectations. When Thomas enters briefly to greet you, she watches with hawk-like attention, noting the way he bows, the way you respond, the angle of your smile. Approval is not merely hers to give, it must be earned daily, performed flawlessly. Afterward, as your carriage rattles home, your mother exhales. She means to ensure you are worthy of him. But never forget, Jane, it is he who must prove himself worthy of you as well. You nod, grateful for her words, though in your heart you feel the tightening coil of pressure from both sides. The next day brings another reminder. Charlotte Hartley calls, radiant with her own engagement. Her conversation drips with anticipation. Lace gowns, engraved invitations, floral arrangements. "It is exhausting," she sighs dramatically, though her smile betrays delight. "But such joy, Jane. I hope you will soon know it yourself." Her words are meant as kindness, but they press against your ribs like the laces of your corset. Engagement is not a distant idea, it is a looming expectation. Even James joins the chorus, though less delicately. At dinner he grins across the table, slicing into his beef. "So, Jane, when shall we drink a toast to Fairchild?" Your father shoots him a warning glance, but James only laughs. "All London talks of it. Might as well admit the obvious." You lower your eyes, cheeks burning. London talks of many things, not all of them true. Yet the truth is undeniable. The city expects. Both families expect. And somewhere beneath the expectations lies your own heart, whispering that perhaps, for once, duty and desire may align. That night, you sit at your dressing table, the poetry book open again. You trace the underlined line as if it might anchor you. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. But you know the truth now, it is not only your heart that must be moved. It is your father's judgment, your mother's approval, Mrs. Fairchild's scrutiny, London's whispers. You are not merely navigating affection, you are navigating expectation. And in Victorian London, expectations are as binding as vows. It begins innocently enough, with a note delivered on heavy cream paper, the kind embossed with a family crest. Mary presents it on a silver tray, curiosity in her eyes. "From Miss Emma Parker, miss," she says. You unfold it carefully. The words are flowery but the message plain. Emma invites you to a small afternoon gathering, ostensibly to share tea and admire the newest French ribbon she has acquired. But beneath the civility you sense a sharpened edge. Emma Parker does not extend invitations without motive. Your mother glances at the card and frowns. "We cannot refuse Jane. To decline would give her gossip she could twist against you. We shall attend." And so, 2 days later, you find yourself in Emma's drawing room, a space curated like a battlefield, flowers artfully arranged, porcelain gleaming, every detail screaming wealth and taste. Several young ladies are present, including Charlotte Hartley, her cheeks still flushed with engagement bliss, and Sarah, Emma's ever-loyal shadow. Tea is poured. Cakes are offered. Conversation flows with practiced ease. But Emma guides it like a conductor, steering every topic toward Thomas Fairchild. "Mr. Fairchild was so charming at the musicale," she says sweetly, her eyes flicking toward you. "His devotion to family is admirable. Why, he spoke to me only last week of how dearly he values his mother's counsel." The implication hangs. Thomas may act with attention, but his mother's will decides everything. Charlotte, too innocent for malice, adds, "Everyone noticed how he turned your pages, Jane. It was quite the compliment." Emma's fan snaps open. "Indeed, but one must be cautious. Compliments can be misleading. Some gentlemen are attentive by nature. It would be dangerous to mistake politeness for intention. The barb is perfectly aimed." The other girls titter, eyes sliding toward you. Your corset feels tighter, though you sit as if carved from calm marble. "Caution is always wise," you reply smoothly. "Though I have found Mr. Fairchild's manners to be consistent, both polite and thoughtful. Consistency is a rare quality, don't you agree?" Emma's smile falters just for an instant. But she recovers, leaning back with feigned serenity. "Of course. Though I did hear he once praised Miss Denham's singing at Lady Ashworth's ball. Such thoughtfulness can be easily bestowed." The room buzzes with unspoken judgment. This is Emma's weapon, suggestion. A reputation need not be ruined with proof, only with doubt. You sip your tea, steadying your breath. Kindness need not be exclusive to be genuine. A gentleman who appreciates art in others may also appreciate it in his wife. I imagine such breadth of mind would make him an admirable partner. The words are bold, almost reckless, but they turn the tide. Charlotte beams, nodding eagerly. Sarah murmurs assent. Even a few of the quieter girls exchange glances that suggest they admire your poise. Emma's eyes narrow behind her fan. For now, she retreats, but the message is clear. She will not surrender without a fight. On the carriage ride home, your mother squeezes your gloved hand. "Well handled. Emma meant to rattle you, but you showed composure. Still, be wary. She will strike again." That evening, James bursts into the drawing room, laughter in his voice. "Jane, you should hear the talk at the club. Emma Parker is fluttering about like a peacock, insisting Fairchild only humors you because of his mother's schemes." Your cheeks burn, but James leans closer, lowering his voice. "Fairchild himself silenced it. Said any man would be fortunate to have your regard. Said it plainly before half the room." Your heart skips. In a society built on half-truths and hidden meanings, Thomas has spoken directly, boldly. But boldness brings risk. Emma Parker will not forgive the humiliation of being publicly contradicted. And so, as you prepare for bed, loosening the corset that has constricted you all day, you understand what lies ahead. Emma is no longer merely a rival. She is an enemy. The dance of social expectations has become a duel. And you, bound by propriety yet emboldened by Thomas's defense, know the game is far from over. The morning after Emma's gathering, your household receives an unexpected visitor. Not Thomas, but his father, Mr. Henry Fairchild. His arrival is no casual call. When the butler announces him, even your father sets aside his newspaper, his brow lifting with interest. Mr. Fairchild enters the drawing room with the measured composure of a man accustomed to negotiations that shape fortunes. His dark coat is impeccably tailored, his silver hair brushed back neatly. He greets your mother courteously, bows to you, but his gaze lingers on your father. "Wilson," he says, shaking hands firmly, "might we have a word?" You and your mother exchange glances. Such a request means business, serious business. Your father leads him into the study, closing the heavy oak door behind them. For nearly an hour, you and your mother sit together, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. Your embroidery lies forgotten in your lap. This is no mere social visit. If Mr. Fairchild has come personally, it signals intent. But intent can be mercenary as much as affectionate. When at last the men emerge, your father's face is unreadable. Mr. Fairchild bows once more. "A pleasure, Mrs. Wilson. Miss Wilson." Then he departs as swiftly as he came, leaving only the echo of his presence behind. At dinner that evening, your father reveals the substance. Fairchild wishes to combine ventures, he says, cutting his meat with deliberate precision. He proposes we invest jointly in the new railway line to Manchester. James whistles low. That's no small project. No, your father agrees. And not without risk. But the potential returns are significant. He spoke, too, of family alliances. Discreetly, of course. Your fork pauses halfway to your mouth. Family alliances? Your father fixes you with a steady gaze. It seems Thomas has made his wishes clear to his father. But business precedes sentiment. Henry Fairchild wants to know if our household stands as firmly as his does. Your mother's lips curve into a small smile. Which is to say, Jane, your father must test whether Thomas is not merely a dutiful son but a capable man. The following week, the test begins. Your father invites Thomas to dine. An intimate affair, just family, no music, no crowd to shield him. The table gleams with polished silver, the candles burn low, and conversation quickly shifts from polite to pointed. "What is your opinion of the Midland Railway, Mr. Fairchild?" your father asks, his tone deceptively mild. Thomas answers with composure, speaking of routes, tariffs, government backing. He does not overreach, does not boast. When pressed further, he admits risks frankly but also outlines strategies to mitigate them. Your father listens intently, his expression revealing nothing. James tries to interject with some joke about locomotives, but your father silences him with a glance. This is not dinner, it is an examination. You sit quietly, heart pounding, watching Thomas navigate each question. His hands remain steady on his glass, his voice calm. More than once, you see the flicker of determination in his eyes, a determination not only to prove himself as a banker's heir but as a man worthy of your father's trust. At last, dessert is served. The air relaxes slightly. Your father leans back, folding his napkin. "You argue well, Fairchild. I see the makings of a steady hand." Thomas inclines his head. "I hope, sir, to prove myself so, in business and beyond." His glance flickers toward you, subtle but unmistakable. After the meal, when the men retire briefly to the study for port, your mother takes your hand. "He answered well." Your father is not easily impressed. When the men return, your father's tone is lighter. "The boy has a sound mind," he declares, "and a willingness to speak truth rather than flattery. I value that." Relief surges through you, though you keep your face composed. In Victorian society, approval is never granted to affection alone. Courtship is as much contract as romance, and tonight, Thomas has passed the first test. But tests remain. Emma Parker's whispers still circle. Society still watches. And though your father is softened, he has not yet yielded fully. That night, as you lie awake in your narrow iron bed, you recall Thomas's calm voice across the dinner table, the way he looked at you when he spoke of steadiness. You understand now that this courtship is more than stolen glances and poetry. It is a negotiation across generations, families, fortunes. And you wonder, will love be strong enough to endure the weight of such expectations? The next week dawns gray and wet, London streets slick with rain, the air heavy with coal smoke and gossip. You sense the change before the first words are spoken. Mary brings in the Morning Post with a worried look. "Another note from Miss Parker, miss," she says, but her voice is hesitant. You break the seal. The words are coy, written in Emma's looping hand. "How charming that Mr. Fairchild is so devoted to you. I do hope he is equally devoted when other ladies call upon his attentions. One hears such curious things, does one not?" Your chest tightens. It is not a direct accusation but a carefully placed thorn, a seed of doubt. By midday the whispers reach your ears more plainly. Mrs. Denham mentions almost casually that she saw Thomas in conversation with a young widow at the academy the day before. Another acquaintance wonders aloud if he might be too attentive to every lady he meets. The words are nothing, yet everything. In Victorian London, reputations can shift on less. At tea your mother regards you carefully. You must not let this rattle you, Jane. But you must also not appear blind. If Emma Parker means to undermine you, she will not stop here. Do you believe the rumor? You ask, your voice low. Belief is not required, your mother answers sharply. Perception alone is enough to harm you. That evening your brother James storms into the drawing room, face flushed from the club. Parker's at it again, he growls, spreading that Fairchild was seen escorting Mrs. Linton's carriage yesterday. Absolute nonsense, but men repeat it because they enjoy the scandal. Your father looks up from his paper, his brow furrowed. Did Fairchild defend himself? James snorts. He doesn't even know it's being said. He's too proper to imagine such slander. But I told them straight, Thomas isn't that kind of man. Your gratitude warms you, but the danger remains. Tomorrow half the city may believe the lie. The following afternoon, the truth comes unexpectedly. As you and your mother step into Hatchett's bookshop, you nearly collide with Thomas himself. His hat is damp with rain, his coat brushed with droplets, but his bow is as precise as ever. Miss Wilson. Mrs. Wilson. A happy coincidence. Your mother greets him warmly, then moves toward a display, giving you a moment's space. Thomas lowers his voice. I have heard whispers, Jane. About Mrs. Linton. About impropriety. You meet his gaze, your own steady despite the pounding of your heart. And what is the truth, Mr. Fairchild? His jaw tightens. The truth is simple. I carried a parcel to her carriage because the shop boy was absent. Nothing more. Yet Miss Parker has turned courtesy into scandal. The mention of Emma's name is rare, deliberate. You feel the weight of his frustration. You mustn't confront her, you warn quietly. It will only feed the fire. His eyes soften. Then allow me to endure it. But know this, Jane, my regard for you does not waver. No rumor can alter it. The words are bold, almost reckless for public ears. But in that instant, standing between shelves of poetry and sermons, you believe him. Later, at home, your mother listens gravely as you recount the encounter. He spoke well, she admits. Still, the danger is not gone. Emma has made herself your rival. She will not relent until either she triumphs, or is silenced by something undeniable. That night, as you sit at your dressing table, the weight of it presses on you. This is no longer a gentle dance of glances and music. It is a contest, your dignity against Emma's envy, your future against her schemes. You open the drawer, touch the hidden volume of poetry once more, and whisper to the empty room. He must be stronger than the rumor, and so must I. A week passes. The rain lifts, and with it, the heaviest of the whispers. The rumor about Mrs. Linton fades, replaced by new gossip, an heiress in Mayfair, a scandal at Parliament. Yet the shadow of Emma Parker's maneuver lingers. You feel it in every sideways glance, every too innocent remark at morning calls. Society remembers even when it pretends to forget. But Thomas Fairchild does not retreat. Instead, he steps forward. On Saturday morning, Mary bursts into your room with eyes shining. Mr. Fairchild has arrived, miss, and he's asked if your father is at home. Your pulse quickens. Formality demands he call upon your father if he intends something serious. The walls of your chamber feel suddenly too close, the corset laces too tight. You can barely breathe as you descend the staircase. Through the half-open door of your father's study, you glimpse the scene. Thomas, standing tall in a dark morning coat, speaking with measured gravity. Your father, arms crossed, listening, his face stern. No voices are raised, but the weight of the conversation is unmistakable. After half an hour, the door opens. Thomas emerges, his expression steady, though his jaw is tense. He bows first to your mother, then to you. Miss Wilson, might I trouble you to accompany me with your mother to the gardens this afternoon? The weather is fine, and I have secured a carriage. Your mother inclines her head graciously. That would be agreeable. The walk in the gardens is like a tableau of Victorian propriety. Gravel paths, clipped hedges, the rustle of silk skirts. the polite murmur of other families strolling. Yet beneath the calm lies a storm of anticipation. Thomas keeps pace beside you, your mother just behind. He speaks at first of art, of the railway, of London's bustle. But then, as you pause beside a fountain, his voice lowers. "Miss Wilson," he says, "I have sought your father's counsel. I hope soon to seek something more precious still, your hand." The world stills. You hear the fountains trickle, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a carriage horse. And his words, so plain, so daring. "Mr. Fairchild, you begin, but propriety binds your tongue. A Victorian lady cannot declare her feelings openly. Instead, you incline your head, allowing the faintest smile to soften your lips. You honor me." Relief flashes in his eyes, though his composure holds. "Then I shall honor you further, when your father grants his blessing. He has not spoken his final word, but I believe he sees me true." Your mother, listening with careful silence, finally speaks. "Mr. Fairchild, Jane is fortunate to inspire such devotion. And fortunate too if your intentions remain steady." "They are steady, madam," he replies firmly. "Steady as steel." The moment breaks as other strollers pass, nodding politely. You resume walking, your heart racing, your hands trembling within your gloves. That evening your father speaks at last. As the family gathers in the drawing room, he sets aside his paper and clears his throat. "Fairchild has spoken to me plainly," he says. "He wishes to propose. I told him he must wait until I have seen more of his character. But I will not deny he has impressed me. He is not reckless. He is not weak. And in time, he may prove himself worthy." Your mother exchanges a glance with you, her eyes bright with restrained excitement. James grins, raising his glass of port. "Well, Jane, it seems we'll be celebrating sooner than later." You lower your gaze, your cheeks burning but your heart soaring. Later, alone in your room, you take out the poetry book once more. The line underlined long ago seems to glow in the lamplight. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. You trace it with your fingertip, whispering softly, "Yes." For in this world of strict propriety and unspoken desires, Thomas Fairchild has found a way to speak, not with reckless passion, but with steady resolve. And in that steadiness you glimpse a future. Not yet sealed, not yet certain, but near enough to taste. A proposal is coming. A new life awaits. The curtain has not yet fallen. It is only rising.